What's going on, you wild thrill seekers? Your two favorite secret agents are back tonight, and we're finally talking about the seventh installment in the Mission Impossible franchise, a movie that we've been waiting all summer for. It's finally here. We're excited, and we're going to review it right now. And what's it called, Logan?
Mission Impossible Dead
Dead
Reckoning,
Reckoning.
Part
Bum, bum,
7.
bum.
Bam, 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 bam.
None of our lives can matter more than this mission.
I don't accept that.
And the action kicks into overdrive and never lets up in this film. But we learn about the premise of the film starting out. It takes place on a submarine. There's some nuclear capabilities that are being threatened in this submarine, and they sense that they're being approached by an enemy vessel. A torpedo shot on them, and it really ramps up the tension right away. Right after the opening of the movie.
Yes, and this Russian submarine is undetectable, so they think. And they really kind of dive into that later on in the film. It's really the whole premise of this having to do with the intro. And right from the get-go of the film, this is a movie I was on the edge of my seat for. And I want to add, this is the first Mission Impossible movie I got to see in the theater. Man, what a ride. But right from the start with the Russian submarine, it's undetectable. They're going to pull this off. Nothing's bad's going to happen. Then it gets blown up, and it sets up the rest of the film. And they're really looking at this film with, much what's going on with the world today with AI taking over, Chat GPT and everything else with the AI. It's a really cool premise how they kind of set that all up.
Yeah, it's really, really neat, really relevant story to what's actually happening out in the world. And even with the submarine stuff that's happening, it feels like this was, just made a couple weeks ago when all this stuff was in the news, obviously about the submarine that went down to, or the, vessel that went down to go see that Titanic and, what happened there. And then, yeah, AI, which is, you work in IT, so you're very familiar with the subject and the dangers that it could pose to our, data systems, hacking information, the power grid, everything connected, to the World Wide Web, really.
Yeah, impersonating people and their voices and stuff like that. And that's the whole setup of the entity. And it really has to do with these two keys, that put them together, and then it can control this entity or basically get rid of it. And they really go into that. And then everybody and their mother going after the keys because they want the power to be able to control the entity. And with that being said, the entity, has its, agents that are kind of, I guess they're human agents, I should say, for the entity. You had Gabriel, which is like the main bad guy in this, and we find out a little backstory with him and Ethan's character in the past and what happens with that. And then also the character Paris.
Tom Clementoff from
There you
Guardians
go.
of the Galaxy.
There you go.
She was a cool villain. It felt almost like a James Bond villainish for this film, which was a lot of fun. Everybody's having a blast shooting this big globe-trotting, action movie. And Tom Cruise made sure everybody was going at 100% in this movie, and he is still going at 100%. The action sequences and stunts in this movie will blow you away, especially if you're watching it on a big IMAX screen like the both of us were. We saw it with great sound, and it really feels like you're on a roller coaster ride throughout this film. It really grabs you and takes you on a wild ride and really injects a lot of emotion. And, you really feel like you're there with the characters. So you form like a strong bond with them, and you want to see them get away and, figure this out. For a movie being almost 3 hours long, this movie flies by. I was never sitting in my seat thinking, when's this going to be over? I was fully invested, and it did not feel its length.
Not at all. I wanted more because it's so much going on. It's such a massive movie. It's epic. It's global. It's all over the world. It has to do with mankind and our futures if we'll survive, and a lot being thrown at us. But it's just a really action-packed movie, probably the most action in this franchise thus far, and just I was so into the movie. I loved, what the characters were doing, the whole story behind the AI and trying to find the keys and all these bad guys showing up and them being all over the globe. You had like Venice and Rome and out in the desert, the Middle East somewhere, and then having to do with this key, and it really brings in the other characters behind us. Rebecca Ferguson, she had one of the keys, and Ethan has to go after her to find it, and then you have the rest of the crew, Simon Pegg and Bing Rames.
That's right. Luther and Benji, they're back.
Right.
They really feel like a family at this point in the franchise, like we've seen them together so many times. They're a family now, and they really operate like that throughout this movie. They have to work closely together. They're using like satellite imaging to keep, facial recognition and find out where the entity goes. It's a very interesting concept, and it feels very realistic. That's what I love about these McQuarrie films, for taking these impossible scenarios and, stunts and all that, but really injecting like the real feel, like, man, this really looks like they're doing everything. Nothing looks, overly fake. There's a few times where it's obviously CGI, but the way that he built the train set, for the big action sequence at the end with the train was just amazing. And to hear the backstory on that they actually constructed that so they could do these crazy stunts on it that happened in the film. The action set pieces in this just go bigger than before, even, just massive. We've all seen the preview of Tom Cruise along the mountain there, jumping off, and seeing that on the big screen, is like, wow, it just looked crazy. And seeing him come down and his, face being pulled back like that, you could tell it was real. Just lends like credibility to what McQuarrie's doing here. It feels real, even though it's an impossible mission, as always, and impossible scenarios and things that they have to do. But they really give it their all and make it feel as realistic as possible. I liked Haley Atwell. She was a really cool character in this, kind of working for some other people in the beginning, but she has her own set of skills. She's good at pickpocketing. There's a lot of scenes in this where where the key gets transferred between people, and involves, her and Ethan being good pickpockets and taking it out of the pocket and hiding things. Between the two of them, there's like some sleight of hand tricks in this movie that we hadn't really seen before in the Mission Impossible franchise. There's also some awesome masks too.
Always the masks. They kind of show how those are made and malfunction at the same time. So they're still keeping it straight from the 90s, but the masks that they make are super realistic. And I don't want to spoil too much about those, but they still make their return in this film. But Haley Atwell, I loved Grace, being the professional pickpocketer. And then she ends up, working with Ethan and trying to find the key, and then really working with the IMF team here. But I really like their chemistry a lot. I thought it brought something new to the franchise. You also had the other love interest, Rebecca Ferguson, of course, and dealing with that. But Haley Atwell, I thought she was way better than I anticipated. I thought she was really good in the scenes, especially the car scene with the Fiat that I was telling you about. The old school Fiat in Italy, I love that. They're so tiny and going through all those tight little roads and things like that. I thought that was well done. The airport scene was just really high strung and intense, having to do with a bomb, and really bringing in Shea Wingham's character of the CIA agent going after Ethan, and just a lot of people going after them all the time. It's just intense, and you're sweating, and you're like, are they going to make it out of this alive?
It never lets up. From the beginning, it just builds up and just keeps getting bigger. And by the time the movie ends, you're blown away. It feels like you've been on a roller coaster ride. Really does. That's what Tom Cruise is trying to do with these films. Keep the cinematic experience alive. Go see this movie on the biggest screen possible and enjoy, what they were able to accomplish with this film. You won't be disappointed. I wasn't disappointed. This is probably the best one, I think, at this point after watching it one time. I mean, they have upped the ante every time, and I really like what they're doing with the AI villain, and the new characters are all good, and I liked how it ended. It wasn't abrupt. It was a good ending, but the rest of the story is going to continue on next summer. Hopefully we'll see after the strike, what happens with this, but hopefully we'll see part 2 next summer.
Had a really great time with the Mission Impossible franchise. This is definitely my favorite movie in the entire franchise. I love the last one. Fallout was great, but they really kicked it up a notch with this film in terms of the action set pieces, the story, and the performances here were all fantastic. Love the addition of Haley Atwell. The rest of the villains showing up in this, and the old crew, IMF crew with Tom Cruise. This dude's nuts. He's still putting his body and life on the line for movies and making movies. So kudos to him for that. And he really knocks it out of the park. I love the whole bike scene going down in the train, and the train at the end was super high strung and crazy how they did that. He basically goes down to save Grace and sets up a lot of great scenes with White Widow's character and a lot of great, practical and CGI in that scene. But really phenomenal movie, 2.5 hours long. It flew by. Really great theater experience. Go see this on the biggest screen possible. If you guys are fans of this, I think you're really going to love the brand new film, Dead Reckoning, and definitely my favorite film of the franchise. So with that being said, I'm going to give the brand new film, playing in theaters, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, 5 out of 5. Vanessa Kirby hair pieces.
Man, what an experience. Another thing worth mentioning is the soundtrack and the score for the film. The way they, ratchet up the tension and the way the songs and the soundtrack accompany the action scenes. It does a great job. And the sound effects, amazing stuff here. Everybody's at their A game on this. A blast to see at the theaters. So don't miss this. Go watch this. We know Oppenheimer and Barbie are coming out. Make sure to go see this film, support it. Summer movies, this is what it's supposed to be, the big blockbuster film of the summer. That's what this really feels like. It feels like a fun roller coaster ride, and you guys aren't going to want to get off. And we won't have to yet until, when part 2 finally hits. But I can't wait for part 2. Part 1 was amazing. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 Ethan Hunt hair pieces. There was some comedy too in this. I like the comedy moments, to sort of lighten the load and give yourself a little break from all the stress that's built up from these big scenes. Benji and Ethan and the other characters did a good job. Inserted some comedy, and just a fun movie.
Yeah, so we're interested in hearing your thoughts on the brand new Dead Reckoning film. What'd you like about it? What didn't you like about it? What's your favorite film in the franchise? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to click subscribe. Also, check out these wild agents on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and our website, Cinephellas.com, for the latest, greatest TV movie news and reviews.
We finally did it. We reviewed the whole entire Mission Impossible franchise. What an awesome ride it's been. I have enjoyed living vicariously through you, seeing these films for the first time, and, showing another person that, make it through the first 2 films and you really won't be disappointed. This franchise keeps up in its game every time. And it's pretty amazing, for a franchise with 7 movies, that they're able to, still produce these amazing, fun theatrical films. And, the story keeps evolving too, and involving, relevant things in the news like artificial intelligence. And of course, all the stuff going on in the world. So thank you guys for watching our review of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. We will be back to review Dead Reckoning Part 2 next summer. So until the next Cinephellas TV review, I'm Uncle Henry Hill.
I'm Big Brames. Same old Ethan.
And we'll be...
Until the next movie review.
Cheers!